Have you ever learned a new English word, used it once, and then, poof, it vanished from your memory? You saw it in a book, maybe used it in a sentence, and then weeks later, it felt like you'd never heard it before. Why does this happen? And more importantly, how do we stop it? Welcome to the English Diary podcast, where we turn everyday learning into lifelong language. In this 6-part series, we'll explore how to remember vocabulary forever. Not just for exams, but for real life. Microphone the problem. Vocabulary that disappears. Let's start with the truth. Most people forget new words because they treat vocabulary like a checklist. Learn it, write it, move on. But language doesn't work that way. Words are living things. They need context, emotion, repetition, and relevance. Without those, they fade. Think about the word serendipity. It means a happy accident. Beautiful word, right? But unless you felt serendipity, like bumping into an old friend at the mall, you won't remember it. That's the secret. Memory is emotional. Microphone why we forget. There are 3 main reasons we forget vocabulary. No emotional connection. If a word doesn't make you feel something, it won't stick. Lack of repetition. Seeing a word once isn't enough. You need to meet it again and again. No personal context. If you don't use the word in your own life, your brain won't prioritize it. Let's take the word meticulous. It means very careful and precise. If you're a content creator like Hero, and you spend hours aligning thumbnails pixel by pixel, then meticulous describes you. That's how you make it stick, by tying it to your identity. Microphone the science of memory works in layers. First, you notice something. Then you understand it. Then you connect it. And finally, you retrieve it. Vocabulary must go through all 4 stages. If you skip one, the word disappears. Let's say you learn the word resilient. You understand it means strong in tough times. But unless you connect it to your own story, maybe how you bounced back after a failed project, you won't retrieve it when you need it. Microphone the myth of rote learning. Many learners still believe that writing a word 10 times will make it stick. It won't. Rote learning is like planting seeds on concrete. You need soil, context, emotion, and usage. Instead of writing benevolent 10 times, write 1 sentence. My grandmother is the most benevolent person I know. She feeds stray dogs every morning. That sentence is a memory. And memory is what makes vocabulary permanent. Microphone real-life example. The word candid. Let me tell you a quick story. I once met a girl at a bookstore who described herself as candid. Asked what she meant. She said, I say what I feel, even if it's awkward. That moment made the word unforgettable. Now, whenever I hear candid, I think of her honesty, her smile, and that rainy afternoon. That's how vocabulary becomes yours, not through textbooks, but through moments. Microphone action step. Start a word diary. Here's your first tool, a word diary. Not a list, a diary. Every time you learn a new word, write the word, its meaning, a sentence from your life, a feeling it gives you. For example, word, nostalgic, meaning, feeling emotional about the past sentence. I felt nostalgic when I saw my old school bag. Feeling, warm, bittersweet. This method turns vocabulary into memory, and memory into mastery. What's easier to remember? A random word on a flashcard, or a story that made you laugh, cry, or think? The answer is obvious. Stories stick. They create emotion, context, and memory. And when you embed vocabulary inside a story, it becomes unforgettable. Microphone why stories work. Let's take the word awkward. You could memorize the definition, causing difficulty or embarrassment. Or you could remember the time you waved at someone who wasn't waving at you. That moment was awkward. And now, the word has a home in your memory. Stories work because they activate multiple parts of your brain: emotion, imagery, sequence, and language. When you learn a word through a story, your brain doesn't just store the word, It stores the experience. Microphone, the power of personal stories, has a simple trick. Whenever you learn a new word, ask yourself, when have I felt this? Let's say you learn the word grateful. Instead of writing the meaning, write a story. I was feeling grateful when my friend showed up with food after a long shoot. I hadn't eaten all day, and she didn't even ask, she just knew. Now, grateful isn't just a word. It's a moment, and moments are hard to forget. Microphone vocabulary through characters. Another powerful method is to create characters who live the word. Take ambitious. Imagine a girl named Ria who wakes up at 5 a.m. every day to study, record videos, and pitch clients. She's not just hardworking, she's ambitious. Now, whenever you hear ambitious, you'll think of Ria. You've built a mental shortcut. This technique works beautifully for batch vocabulary learning. Create a mini story for each word, even if it's just 2 lines. Microphone real-life example. The word vulnerable. I once had a conversation with someone who said, I don't like being vulnerable. I asked why. She said, because people take advantage when you show weakness. That sentence hit me. I didn't just understand the word vulnerable. I felt it. Now, whenever I hear it, I remember her voice, her honesty, and the quiet strength it took to say that out loud. Microphone use micro stories in daily practice. You don't need long novels. Just micro stories. Here's how to build one. Choose a word. Hesitate. Create a moment. I hesitated before pressing upload on my first YouTube video. Add emotion. My heart was racing. What if no one watched? That's it. You've built a memory. Now, hesitate is linked to your creative journey. It's yours. Microphone bonus tip. Use voice notes if you're a content creator. This tip is gold. Record short voice notes where you use new vocabulary in a story. Example. Today I felt overwhelmed. Too many edits, too little time. That word, overwhelmed, really fits. Play it back later. Your own voice, your own emotion, your own context. That's how you build retention. We often think of vocabulary as something external. Words we collect, memorize, and use. But the truth is, the most powerful words are the ones we internalize. The ones that feel like they belong to us. That's the next layer of retention, emotional bonding. Let's take the word persistent. You could define it as continuing firmly despite difficulty. But what if you saw it as part of your personality? What if every time you pushed through a creative block, stayed up late editing, or re-recorded a reel for the 5th time, you whispered to yourself, I'm persistent. That's not just vocabulary. That's identity. When you emotionally bond with a word, it becomes part of your self-talk. It shows up in your captions, your scripts, your reflections. You don't just remember it, you live it. Here's a simple exercise. Pick 5 words that describe who you are. Not who you want to be, who you already are. Maybe it's curious, resilient, thoughtful, bold, or adaptable. Now, for each word, write a moment from your life that proves it. Not a definition, a story. For example, word, resilient story. When my first video flopped, I didn't quit. I studied the analytics, changed the hook, and tried again. That's emotional bonding. You're not just learning the word, you're claiming it. And this works beautifully for bilingual learners. Let's say you learn the word compassion. In Hindi, it's karuna. Now think of a moment when you showed compassion, maybe helping a friend through burnout or comforting someone after rejection. That cross-language memory strengthens both versions. You're building bridges, not just vocabulary. Another powerful method is sensory anchoring. Attach a word to a sound, a smell, a texture. Take serene. Maybe it reminds you of the sound of rain on your window, or the scent of lavender, or the feeling of sitting alone in a quiet room. That sensory link makes the word unforgettable. You can even use this in your content creation. If you're designing a thumbnail for a video about calmness, use the word serene in your title and match it with soft colors and gentle music. Now the word isn't just in your mind, it's in your visuals, your audio, your audience's experience. And here's something most learners overlook: emotional contrast. Let's say you learn the word elated. It means extremely happy. But to truly feel it, contrast it with disappointed. Think of a time when you expected something. Let your environment speak the language. Words don't live in isolation. They live in your surroundings, in your playlists, your captions, your workspace, your conversations. If you want to remember vocabulary forever, you have to let your environment speak the language you're learning. Think about your phone. What if your lock screen had a quote using the word tenacity? What if your folders were named momentum, ideas, drafts, and final? You're not just organizing files. You're reinforcing vocabulary. Every time you open a folder, you're subconsciously revisiting a word. This is called passive exposure, and it's one of the most underrated memory tools. You don't have to actively study a word to remember it. You just have to see it often enough, in meaningful places. That's why visual learners thrive when their environment reflects their goals. Let's say you're working on the word clarity. You could design a thumbnail with clean lines, soft gradients, and the word clarity in bold. Now the word isn't just in your notes, it's in your creative output. It's part of your brand. And this works offline too. Stick a word on your mirror. Write it on a sticky note near your editing desk. Add it to your journal header. These micro-placements create macro impact. You're building a world where vocabulary isn't something you chase, it's something you live in. Even your playlists can help. Create a word mood playlist. Each song title should reflect a word you're working on. Unstoppable, fragile, euphoria, bittersweet. These aren't just tracks, they're emotional anchors. When you hear the song, the word comes alive. And don't forget your captions. Every time you post a reel or a short, challenge yourself to use one new word. Not in a forced way, but in a way that fits your tone. If your reel is about overcoming creative burnout, maybe the caption includes resilience. If it's about a funny moment, maybe you use quirky. These small choices build long-term retention. Now let's talk about habit stacking. This is where you attach vocabulary practice to something you already do. For example, if you journal every night, add one new word to your entry. If you script reels weekly, include a vocabulary moment. If you batch thumbnails, name each one with a word that matches the vibe. Habit stacking works because it doesn't require extra effort. It just adds meaning to what you already do. And for creators like you, hero, this is gold. Your workflow becomes your memory system. Even your conversations can help. Try using new words in casual chats. Not to sound fancy, but to sound intentional. Instead of saying I'm tired, say I feel drained. Instead of I'm excited, say I'm elated. These upgrades aren't just linguistic, they're emotional. And here's a bonus tip: create a vocabulary wall. Digital or physical. Every week, add 5 words you've used, felt, or taught. Let it grow. Let it reflect your journey. It's not just decoration, it's documentation. Because in the end, vocabulary isn't just about language. It's about identity. The words you remember are the words you live. And the environment you build becomes the echo chamber of your growth. Coming up next, we'll explore how to use your voice, literally, to reinforce vocabulary. From voice notes to podcasting, speaking is the final step in making words truly yours. This is the English Diary Podcast. Keep creating, keep expressing, and let your surroundings become your language lab. Speak it to keep it. How your voice makes vocabulary stick. You've built the environment. You've created emotional anchors. Now it's time to activate the final layer, your voice. There's something powerful about saying a word out loud. It's not just pronunciation, it's ownership. When you speak a word, you give it rhythm, tone, and intention. You make it real. And that's why speaking is one of the most effective ways to remember vocabulary forever. Let's start simple. Pick a word you've learned recently, maybe resilient or graceful. Now say it. Not just once. Say it in a sentence. Say it in a story. Say it like you mean it. I stayed resilient through every rejection. She moved with a graceful confidence I couldn't ignore. Your voice adds texture. It turns abstract meaning into lived experience. And if you're bilingual, this is your superpower. Switch between languages. Say the word in English, then in Hindi. Empathy. Samvedanshilta. Now use both in a sentence. True empathy, yani asli samvedanshilta, means feeling without judgment. This cross-language rhythm builds deeper memory. You're not just translating, you're integrating. Now let's talk about teaching. The moment you explain a word to someone else, your brain shifts gears. You're no longer just storing information, you're structuring it. Try this. Record a short voice note or podcast segment where you teach 5 new words. Use examples. Use emotion. Use your own stories. For example, today's word is vulnerable. It means open to emotional exposure. I felt vulnerable when I shared my first podcast episode. I didn't know how people would react, but I did it anyway. That's not just teaching. That's storytelling. And storytelling is memory. You can even turn this into a weekly ritual. Every Sunday, record a word rap episode. Share 5 words you used, learned, or loved that week. Reflect on how they showed up in your life. Spontaneous came up when I took an unplanned trip to the old city. Bittersweet described the moment I finished editing a reel that reminded me of someone I miss. These reflections aren't just content, they're cognitive reinforcement. And don't worry about sounding perfect. In fact, imperfection helps. When you stumble on a word, pause, correct, and continue. That moment of correction strengthens recall. Your brain flags it as important. You can also use voice journaling. Instead of writing your thoughts, speak them. Today I felt overwhelmed. That word, overwhelmed, really fits. Too many tasks, too little clarity. Now you've used the word in a real emotional context. That's how it sticks. And if you're scripting educational content, embed vocabulary naturally. Instead of saying this is a good idea, say this is a compelling concept. Instead of she's nice, say she's genuinely compassionate. These upgrades elevate your language and deepen your memory. Even casual conversations can help. Try using 1 new word each day in a real interaction. At the cafe, I'm feeling optimistic about this week. With a friend, that was a generous gesture. With yourself, I handled that with patience. These micro moments build macro fluency. Because in the end, vocabulary isn't just about knowing words. It's about using them, living them, owning them. And your voice is the bridge between memory and mastery. Coming up next, we'll wrap up this series with a final layer. How to design your own vocabulary system, a personalized, creative, and scalable method to remember words forever. Part 6. Design your own vocabulary system and never forget again. So far, we've explored how emotion, storytelling, visuals, environment, and voice can turn vocabulary into memory. But now it's time to bring it all together to design a system that's not just effective, but personal. One that fits your rhythm, your creativity, your life. Because the truth is, there's no one-size-fits-all method. The best vocabulary system is the one you'll actually use. And it starts with intention. Begin with a word vault, a place where every new word lives. It could be a digital folder, a physical notebook, or even a voice memo archive. But it must be yours. Every entry should include the word, its meaning, a personal sentence, and a feeling. That's your foundation. Next, build a weekly ritual. Every Sunday, revisit 5 words. Speak them. Use them in a caption. Design a thumbnail. Write a short story. Don't just review, relive. Let the words pass through your voice, your visuals, your emotions. Then, create themes. Group words by mood, by season, by project. Words like momentum, clarity, and focus belong to your productivity theme. Whimsical, nostalgic, and serene might live in your creative zone. This thematic clustering helps your brain organize meaning. And don't forget to teach. Whether it's a podcast segment, a reel, or a casual conversation, share what you've learned. Teaching isn't just generous. It's magnetic. It pulls the word deeper into your memory. Finally, track your growth. Not with tests, but with reflections. Ask yourself, which words have become part of my voice? Which ones still feel distant? What stories helped me remember the most? This isn't just about vocabulary. It's about identity. The words you choose to remember shape how you express, how you connect, how you create. So build your system. Make it visual. Make it emotional. Make it yours. And remember, every word you truly feel, every word you use with intention becomes permanent. This was the English Diary Podcast. Thank you for joining me on this 6-part journey. Keep learning, keep expressing, and let your vocabulary become your legacy.